Hey guys, Jake here. In this video, I'm going to share with you guys things to consider before buying a laptop. It will be there will be three sections in this video. Part one will be the general things to consider in any laptop, because all laptops have them. And then part two will be about the core components in each category of laptop, general use, web browsing and productivity, and then content creation laptops, and then gaming laptops. And then part three will be about the input and output on the laptops, such as USB ports. Okay, so part one, the general things about any laptop. First off, what is your price, your budget? What are you willing to pay, and what's that range, minimum and maximum, that you're willing to pay? I guess zero could be your minimum, but what is your budget? The next is portability. That includes several things. The weight of the laptop. If you want to be able to take the laptop around everywhere, you're going to want it fairly light. I think mine is like 5.5, maybe 6 pounds. It still feels pretty heavy just because of the leverage of the laptop when you're carrying it on one side. And then next is the battery capacity. How long does the laptop stay charged or stay on with one single charge to the battery? Next is power, adapter size, and cable length. So if you do run out of battery and want to plug it in, top it off, what's your distance that you can go with that, and the adapter size, will it fit in the bag that you will be using to carry your laptop easily. Next is the screen size, so like 11 inches to 18 inches. That also plays a big role in portability. The bigger the laptop is, the less likely you are going to haul it around everywhere with you. Then we have the 360 degree designs of laptops, where you have the laptop and it can fold all the way back and use it as a tablet. So that's another thing to consider. And then let's move on to displays. The panel type that is used, TN, a twisted pneumatic panel, is generally quicker with response times, and they're cheaper to make, versus the IPS or in-plane switching, which is better at color accuracy and with viewing angles. So that's more for content creators. The screen type, glossy, where it reflects light like a mirror, or matte, where it blurs and disperses that light. Next is display resolution. The cheaper laptops will have usually have 1366 by 768 resolution, but there are resolutions that range from that one to 4K laptops. But remember that the larger the resolution, you will almost always use more battery to display that resolution, how hard it is. And moving on, so we're going to look at the keyboard. Do you want the keyboard to be backlit? Do you want a 10-key number pad on the side of the laptop? And next we have wireless. You are going to want wireless, and you want to look for 802.11 AC. But if you find one with 802.11n, that is still fine for a few years. Shouldn't really see that big of a difference in everyday use. Then the speakers, do they sound good? This kind of goes with reviews, which we'll talk about in 2 seconds. The operating system, you're probably going to get Windows 10 operating system. With reviews, you're going to want to look for the features that the laptop, the brand, provides, the build quality of the laptop, the heat that the laptop creates, and the fan noise that disperses that heat, the support and warranty that the company provides with their laptops, and then like the speakers and other, just like everything generally about the laptop. And just look at those reviews, because that will also play a big role in whether or not you're going to buy a laptop or not, or consider buying that one. So moving on. Okay, so now we're going to move on to part 2, where we talk about the core components in the laptops and what you should get in each of those areas. I'll talk about the storage drive at the end of part 2, but we're going to go through the easier ones to talk about for each type of laptop first. So starting with web browsing and general productivity, if you're looking around and you see a Chromebook, those are usually fine. If you're okay with using a Chromebook, they don't do much besides surfing the web. That's what they're made for, and they're not that pricey usually. So you should be fine just getting a Chromebook if you just want to search the web. But if you want to do a little bit more, run a couple of programs, then what you're going to want for the CPU, an i3 or lower, so an Intel i3, Intel Pentium, Intel Celeron, Intel Atom processor. Those will do fine, but the Intel Atom is a lot more low power, so it might not be as quick, but it'll save a lot of power, so it will be more portable. And there are like AMD processors, but I'm just going to go over Intel processors because they kind of have the upper hand in the processing world right now. The GPU, you're fine with going with the integrated GPU on that laptop. And you'll know if it's integrated or dedicated graphics card. It should tell you. But if it doesn't tell you the graphics card, you probably have an integrated GPU, which is fine. GPU means graphics processing unit, graphics card. Okay, moving on to RAM for web browsing and general productivity. You're going to want 2 gigabytes minimum, and then I recommend 4 gigabytes. But if you are a heavy multitasker, the CPU, the i3 CPU should be fine, but get an i5 just to be safe if you're planning on running a lot of different things at once, even though they might not be like super CPU. The GPU, you're still fine with the integrated GPU. The RAM though, you're going to want 4 gigabytes minimum. And then I recommend 8 gigabytes. But if you're like an extreme multitasker, like my dad, he has like 40 tabs open in Chrome like all the time, and it uses up the 8 gigabytes, and it kind of slows down the computer when you want to switch between those. So I prefer 12 gigabytes or more RAM if you're going to go with the if you're an extreme multitasker. Alright, so let's move on to the gaming laptop. So for the CPU, i5 for most games should be fine. Get an i7 if the game recommends it. You can look online at the game's system requirements. So all you have to do is like search the name of the game and then hit search system requirements for the game. And you should be fine. Also do that with the GPU, the graphics card. Look for dedicated graphics card or DGPUs. Probably something with XX60, so like a 960M at 1060 or higher, with just a dedicated graphics card made within the past couple of years. That's higher powered, more performance. And I also recommend it having at least 2 gigabytes of video memory. Now, the sites, stores will tell you how much video memory graphics card has. The RAM, you should be fine with 8 gigabytes. But some games might recommend that you have more. So just again, pick a laptop that has the amount of RAM that is recommended, or the minimum for the games you want to run. If you want to do virtual reality gaming, I definitely recommend an i7 CPU, high-powered i7, a latest generation graphics card, again 1060, 1070, 1080 at the time of making this video, with at least 4 gigabytes of video memory. The RAM, 8 gigabytes minimum, but recommends 12 plus gigabytes. For a content creator, you're going to want an i7 CPU. For the GPU, unless you know that programs that you're going to use need a dedicated GPU, you're probably fine with the integrated graphics card on the CPU die. But it won't hurt if you have a dedicated GPU. So if you find a laptop that has like a lower end graphics card, like maybe a 930M or 940M, those might help a little bit if you aren't sure that program uses it. Plus you can do a little bit of light gaming with those cards. Unless you know a program that will use a lot of RAM, like Adobe Premiere, Adobe products, or some other product. I don't know which programs use a lot of RAM. You're safe with like 12 gigabytes. You're probably safe with 8 gigabytes for that matter, but if you know that the program uses a lot of RAM, then go ahead and get 16 gigabytes or maybe even 32 gigabytes, if you know that'll be used. So, just so you know. So now I'm going to look at the storage drives that you should look at for any laptop. So an SSD, I highly recommend in every computer, laptop and desktop. There are different couple types of form factors, like 2.5 inch or M.2. You can research those, but you don't really need to worry about that. But information regarding the interface SSDs use, or the data connection. Some will use the SATA 3 6 gigabit per second connection, and then some will use NVMe, which is non-volatile memory express. Excuse me. But you don't really need to worry about those, because you probably wouldn't be watching this video if you know much about those. Hard disk drives, used with an SSD for lots of extra storage space, or if you don't have a budget for the SSD. There's also like a hybrid solid state and hard drives. It's called solid state hybrid drive, or solid state hard drive, SSHD, and it's kind of like the best of both worlds. But looking at again the portability of laptops, if it has a hard disk drive, it'll be more prevalent to breaking if you move it around a lot, because there's the spinning disks in there, and if you're moving around the laptop, it could damage the hard drive, and so I prefer an SSD. Okay, so now we're at part 3, the input and output, or the I/O is what it'll be called sometimes. So let's start with the USB ports. So USB Type A ports. I recommend at least 3 of these ports in a laptop. Um, Preferably USB 3.0. But a lot of laptops that you see will maybe have like 2 USB 3.0 ports and 1 USB 2.0 port. Just make sure you know that. USB Type C ports, the newer type of USB that's reversible any way you put it in. It's not quite mainstream yet, but I definitely recommend at least 1 USB Type C port. You also need to look carefully at the speed that the USB Type C port uses. Sometimes the port will operate at USB 3.0 speeds and not USB 3.1 Gen 2 speeds. It's kind of iffy how they do it, but the speed at what you're looking for is 10 gigabits per second. And it's not like bad that they do that or that you have a USB 3.0 Type C port, but it's just nice to know what you're paying for. Next is Thunderbolt. That uses the same, version 3 uses the same port as the USB Type C, so they're kind of like interchangeable, I think. I don't know much about that, but I know that Thunderbolt version 3 will fit in USB Type C port. Display output ports for multi-monitor use. There's HDMI is the most common. You can research the different versions of HDMI so you know what you are getting. So like HDMI 1.3 will, I mean, I don't know exactly, but they'll like HDMI 1.3, HDMI 1.4, and there's a new HDMI 2.0 that will output 4K at 120 hertz, I think. So just make sure you look at those different versions and make sure that you're getting the right HDMI version number. There's also a DisplayPort, a mini DisplayPort if you want to use those connections, and then older VGA connection for like older projectors or monitors that kind of still use that as their main port. You look for an laptop with an SD card slot. They're very good, especially for those with who work with cameras and filming video and need to quickly transfer over those files to a computer and switch out the SD cards. It's a lot easier. Content creators and just generally everyday users. Ethernet. It's good to have an Ethernet port if you don't have a good wireless connection. And also if you're like a serious gamer, like into shooters and want that quick connection, it's good to have an Ethernet port on your laptop that you can hook up. Have a secure, not necessarily secure, but that stable connection is what I'm looking for. There's Bluetooth that is in a lot of laptops. Most laptops you will look at will probably have Bluetooth, but if you like need to have Bluetooth, then just make sure that it has Bluetooth. Look at the laptop for headphone and line-in ports. Sometimes they'll have combo ports where the headphone and line-in are the same port. And so if I were to plug in my phone's the headphones that come with my phone, I can plug it into the laptop and it'll work as a mic and headphone. There's also disc readers and writers. If you still want those, you can get that. If you want a laptop with touch screen, then make sure you look for that. Although with touch screen, your fingers are going to be touching the screen a lot more, and so your screen is more likely to get a lot of fingerprints and dirt and grime on there. So just make sure to wipe off the screen every now and then. Look up how to do that. Look up for webcams and mics on the laptop. Some of them won't have a webcam or mic, but if you're wanting to maybe talk to somebody online over Skype, or talk with other gamers if you're a gamer, then, or like record voiceovers if you're a content creator, then maybe look for that mic and for a web camera, just in case. That's it for part 3 and this video. So just make sure to look at these different things. Having each of these different like ports and different core components and just everything together, it's gonna range in prices. Like, you might change an SSD to have an IPS monitor or screen, and so like it'll be the same price, but you're kind of getting rid of something good for another good thing if you think about it. And so just make sure you look around for those different things, and yeah, there's not much to say about it. Just kind of do your research, look at reviews and whatnot, because you're going to be living with the laptop for probably a few years. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I know this video is kind of wild and my voice is kind of going out. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Also, if I forgot anything in this video, please do put them in the comments below, and I'll try to put them in the description of this video. Yes, thank you. Peace.